Today we'll be going over the basic employment of JDAM bombs, such as the GBU 38 and 31 of the DCS A-18C Hornet. They are very much work in progress at the moment. We'll cover getting coordinates, basic use, and a multi-attack single pass, with a video on advanced features coming in the future as they're released. JDAMs are guided by a combination of INS and GPS that function in day or night and zero visibility. They are unable to track moving targets however, so typically they'll be used against static objects like emplacements and buildings. We'll start by talking about coordinates, a fundamental part of using JDAMs. This section is also useful for anyone planning on providing coordinates to aircraft using JDAMs in a support role. As always, timecodes are provided if you'd like to jump right into the setup and using them. Getting coordinates. The first step of any JDAM attack is locating your target and the coordinates required to hit it. Often this is planned before the aircraft even takes off. These will come from our briefings, stored in our waypoints, or communicated over the radio by other forces. In the future, we'll also be able to designate targets with either the AT FLIR or Lightning II targeting pods. I recommend you grab a pen and paper to write coordinates down on, especially if you're expecting to receive them over the radio. If we're lucky, the mission will provide us with coordinates or waypoints. However, if they don't, there are a number of sources you can use to get coordinates for yourself. The most obvious is to use a map. This of course relies on your target being visible on the map, so depending on the fog of war and realism settings, this might not be an option to you. The current coordinates of your mouse cursor are shown in the top left of the map, which is opened by pressing F10. By pressing Left Alt and Y together, you can cycle between the various coordinates types. As a small note, make sure you wiggle your cursor to update the box to get new coordinates. Regional keyboards may have alternative bindings. The command you're looking for is infobar coordinate units toggle. The format we want to use is latitude, longitude, degrees, minutes, seconds, and decimal seconds to give us the highest accuracy. Now we simply place our cursor over the target, be it a building or visible hostile unit, and write down the coordinates and elevation shown in the top left. In a similar fashion, a player using the Combined Arms module can cycle coordinates displayed with the same keybind, Left Alt and Y, and then use their laser rangefinder to locate the target, which they can then communicate to you over the radio. You can also get the location from a targeting pod. At the moment the Hornet lacks its own targeting pod, so we have to rely on others for this information. There is one slight issue however. Most targeting pods present coordinates in the wrong format. Specifically, they give us either MGRS, Military Grid Reference System, or latitude and longitude, in degrees, minutes, decimal minutes. We are after degrees, minutes, seconds, decimal seconds. For this, we have to do some very simple maths to convert the coordinates, so I recommend you keep a calculator handy for this. In this example, I'm using a Lightning II pod mounted on an A-18C. Below in the centre we can see the elevation and coordinates. The format used is degrees, minutes and decimal minutes. So we already have our degrees and minutes, but we're lacking the seconds. The Lightning II does however give us decimal minutes to 3 places, so we can convert them into seconds. Since the decimal places are representing a partial minute, we take one 60-second minute and times it by the decimal number to get our seconds. This gives us the complete degrees, minutes, seconds, decimal seconds that we require. In this second example we've got the lantern pod from an F-14B Tomcat. Unfortunately the lantern gives us only 2 decimal places, meaning its accuracy will be reduced. so take this into account. It may be better to go for larger targets such as buildings or groups of vehicles. The process is once again the same. Take 60 seconds and times it by the decimal minutes, and you've got your seconds. When we have our own targeting pod for the Hornet, we will be able to skip the entering of coordinates and directly pass the location our targeting pod is looking at to our JDAMs with the target of opportunity mode. Our bombs will only ever be as accurate as the resolution of the coordinates used. It's important that we have the most precise coordinates possible when dropping on small targets. It's no use to accurately locate a target and then give imprecise coordinates, as this will leave you with a large margin of error relating to the grid square size of your coordinates. Lastly, we might receive coordinates in MGRS format, either from a Lightning II or an AI JTAC. In this situation, unfortunately, there is no easy way to convert them with a calculator. I recommend an online converter to do this for you, such as this example which I've linked in the description below. So now that we're armed with coordinates, we'll move on to setting up our bombs. JDAM page overview. On our stores page, we can see JDAMs denoted by a J, and their bomb type as a number afterwards. Once selected, we'll see new options, including the alignment dialog. This counts down from 10 minutes. In the center of the display, we can see the alignment status. Much like our aircraft, JDAMs need to align their own INS and GPS systems before operation. During this time, we'll see the counter count down and the alignment quality count down from 10, showing unstable to marginal and good. Finally, it will reach 01 good for best alignment. This process takes about 3 minutes and is required if you want your bombs to be accurate. Please note that you can only have one JDAM type aligned at any one given time, and the alignment will be lost if you deselect them, requiring you to restart the process. Around the outside we have the mode, either pre-planned or target of opportunity modes. Our electronic fuse options, limited to instantaneous and variable time, a proximity fuse. Our station step, to select a specific station, and the JDAM display for our dedicated JDAM page. Here we see a repeat of our alignment information, the selected station, our current target, weapon type, the release mode and quantity selected to drop, and if we are in air-to-ground master mode, you'll also see the time until maximum range timer appear in the top right. Around the edges we can cycle our mode again, open the MSN mission page which stores our pre-planned targets, which we'll cover later, and the release type, of which only manual is available at the moment. Note that the electronic fusing option is not present and must be selected on the previous menu, so double check you've armed your fuse before you perform an attack, as it's very easy to forget it at this stage. Once again, we also have the station step button, and below that the quantity. This allows you to manually select stations to drop. You'll only ever want this if you plan on dropping multiple JDAMs on a single target. With that, we'll move on to how to set up pre-planned and target of opportunity modes. JDAM setup in pre-planned mode. Pre-planned mode is the go-to mode for employment of JDAMs when you have precise coordinates, either planned in advance or communicated to you in flight over radio. It can take a while to set up, so I recommend doing this outside of the target area or before you take off. Select our desired bomb, ensure pre-planned is selected, choose electronic fuse, go to the JDAM display page, and we'll enter MSN mission page. The pre-planned page features a number of advanced features that are not available just yet, so we'll cover the basics for now. Along the top, we can see a number of crossed out pre-planned targets, 6 in total. A repeat of our selection and the parameters for our currently selected pre-planned target are in the center. You can select them with the on-screen buttons, with the selection denoted by a box. For now, they're all crossed out, indicating that they do not have valid coordinates. Pre-planned targets require latitude and longitude coordinates in a specific format, being degrees, minutes, seconds, and decimal seconds, as well as target elevation. We will enter this information by pressing the Target UFC button and referencing our upfront controller. Starting with elevation by pressing the Elev button, select meters or feet, and then type in the altitude and press enter. We will now return to the main menu by cycling the Target UFC off and back on again. Next we'll do coordinates by pressing the POSN for position. Enter our latitude by pressing lat, then 2 for north, and then our degrees, minutes, seconds, and press enter. The display will reset, and now we enter our decimal seconds. Press enter one last time and it's saved. Now we'll enter coordinates for longitude with lon. We'll press 6 for east, enter degrees, minutes, seconds, press enter, enter our decimal seconds and press enter once more. You'll now notice that the pre-planned target is no longer crossed out as it is suitable for use. In the center, we can see the target location we've just entered. Quickly check that you haven't made any mistakes, and then you can repeat the process for the other pre-planned targets as you desire. If your coordinates flash when entered, you've entered an invalid number, and most likely you've entered coordinates in the wrong format, such as degrees, minutes, and decimal minutes. With our pre-planned targets configured, we can move on to dropping our bombs. We will now go over the alternative method, target of opportunity, or you can skip ahead to the weapons employment section. JDAM Setup in Target of Opportunity mode. TOO, Target of Opportunity mode, is a much simpler method of employing JDAMs. It will link with your targeting pod, waypoints and mark points for quick targeting. Only waypoints are implemented for the moment, so we'll go over this. In Target of Opportunity mode, we do not need to enter coordinates to drop our bombs. Instead, we'll pick an existing source to give them. Before we start, it is important to note that currently, a waypoint entered in flight is not precise. We are lacking precise coordinate entry for waypoints, a feature we will be getting later on in early access. So for the moment, this method is best used with waypoints that were set up in the mission editor as targets. Otherwise, you will have a significant margin of error on your target points. We'll set up our fuse and set the Target of Opportunity mode. We're now pretty much ready. We're using waypoints, so we'll hop over to the other display and we'll review our waypoints before reaching the target area. Open the HSI and go to Data, and then we'll cycle through our waypoints. We're checking to make sure that our waypoints have the correct altitude set for ground level. If anything looks out of the ordinary, we'll need to double check it and correct it if necessary. It is not uncommon for a mission maker to mistakenly leave a waypoint up in the sky, especially if they don't own the module themselves and understand the requirements. If you do find a waypoint that's got an incorrect elevation, we will need to fix that. Visit the F10 map, and if you click on your aircraft, it'll display our waypoints on the map. Alternatively, you can press the Show All Routes button on the top. Now, we simply mouse over the waypoint we wish to correct and read the correct ground elevation from the top left. With that, we simply enter the correction like you would when manually creating a waypoint. Once you are satisfied that your waypoints are in fact correct, return to the HSI main page. We'll now designate with the Weapon Designate button. This sets our currently selected waypoint as our target for attack with our JDAMs. We're now ready to attack the target on our waypoint. JDAM Employment Manual Release Mode. For the moment, only manual release mode is available. The employment of JDAMS is much the same in both target of opportunity and pre-planned modes. As we approach the target, we need to allow 3 minutes for our JDAMS to align, ensure our electronic fuse is set correctly, and then we'll designate what our target will be, either a pre-planned target or a target of opportunity, as previously explained. With our target selected, you will now see symbology on both our HUD and the HSI appear. This will guide us onto the target. On the HUD, we see a diamond on the heading tape. This is a steering cue towards our target. On the right we have time until max range, the selected weapon and mode, the number of degrees off from the target we are, and a large diamond indicating the location of our target visually. It will flash until it is within the bounds of our HUD display. We simply follow the steering cues on our heading tape to fly towards our target. During this stage, you should make a visual inspection of the target diamond and check that it is roughly where you expect it to be. Over on the HSI, we have some useful information for visualizing our acceptable release zone. In the center we have our target, and then moving outwards we have the minimum release range and the maximum theoretical release range. These are calculated dynamically based on airspeed, altitude and heading. Treat releasing a JDAM much like launching a missile. The faster and higher you are, the more energy it will have, so the greater the range and maneuvers they can make. Note that these circles will expand and contract as you move around, and they dynamically represent the parameters for release. Once our aircraft, represented by a cross in the center, passes within the two circles, we are within range and are ready to deploy our weapons. If you find yourself with a circle that is far too small, you may have to add some more airspeed or altitude before you perform your attack. Back on the HUD, referencing the time until max range, this is how long it will take you to reach the outer circle you saw on the HSI. Once you are within the two circles, the HUD will change to show the words in range instead of a timer. At this point, we're free to drop our bombs at any moment. Remember that the maximum range is a theoretical maximum range, so depending on atmospheric conditions you might still miss. Therefore, it's best to give a little extra time to bank some energy. When you are within range and ready, press and hold the weapon's release button until the JDAM has separated from your aircraft. JDAMs are fire and forget, so it'll home in on its target independently from our aircraft, and we are now free to turn away from the target and make any defensive maneuvers we wish. Multiple targets in a single pass. Now that we've got the basics down, let's look at dropping multiple bombs in a single pass. This is actually a very simple thing to do, just requiring some preparation. First, we'll need as many targets as we have bombs, either waypoints or stored pre-planned targets. Note that the targets all need to be in the same rough area. Too far apart and you will be forced to make multiple passes. Run in on your target area. It's best to ensure a little extra speed and altitude, as you will be dropping some bombs in slightly less than ideal conditions, which will force them to make corrections. This extra speed will allow them to make the corrections required. Select your first target and fly towards it. Ideally, you should fly along the path of your targets so that you can drop them in sequence. Although it is possible to come in from any angle, it will require more energy and the release window for some of the outlying targets will be smaller, reducing their chances of success. This gets progressively more important the further away your targets are from each other. If you are using pre-planned mode, ensure that the pre-planned mission page is open, and as soon as you release your first bomb, switch to the next pre-planned target, check it is within range, and release the next bomb. Then simply repeat the process until you are out of bombs or targets. If you're using waypoints and the target of opportunity mode, this is a little bit more work but much the same. Have your HSI open, and after the first bomb is released, cycle to your next waypoint, press the weapon designate button again, check you are within range and release. Repeat until done. JDAMs have a number of advanced features such as a dedicated lofting mode, auto and flight directed release modes, launch points and offsets, as well as terminal guidance parameters for configuring how you want the bomb to hit its target. Unfortunately, these are not available in the current release, so keep an eye on the channel and I will be covering them in my advanced JDAM tutorial later down the line when they are added to the sim. Happy hunting and take care.